You know, it's another beautiful day here in Indiana, the land of Bobby Knight and Axl Rose, the land of Colonel Sanders and John Cougar Mellencamp, the land of Michael Jackson and Dan Quayle. There's some potato for you. A little political humor this morning, but I have a topic, and this is one that needs audience participation. Not that I don't get that already. I actually am quite grateful for the participation I get for these videos I record in my vehicle, because, you know, as I'm driving to work and I'm looking at the road, I'm not even looking at the camera because there's nothing to look at. So I am being a safety driver. I'm just talking like I would if I was on the phone. So I know some people, I think, get concerned, but I never look at the phone. I'm only looking at the road. So, but I got a topic, and it's actually just completely outside the box, and I just thought it'd be a fun topic to hear people kind of like share their thoughts. So the question I have for you all today is, if you could have any job in the world, what would you do? I think it's a cool topic because we all grow up. You know, when we're kids, we want to be baseball players, or we want to, you know, maybe be doctors, or we want to be we want to join the military, or we want to be, you know, maybe teachers, or you want to play football, or something along those lines. I mean, there's literally thousands of jobs. So we're not talking about, well, when you're 5 years old, unless that's still what you wanted to be now today, you know, what you wanted to be when you're little, and then, as you were growing up and started making the decisions like, man, if I had the smarts, if I had the natural ability, if I had the athletic prowess, I would really like to be this. For me, being born in Indiana, I'm not really anywhere near Hollywood, but I always wanted to be a director. Always wanted to be a director ever since I was a kid. It is something for me, at least, as a kid, that growing up, I still wanted to do as a teenager and as a young adult. I just loved the idea of directing movies, sharing a vision that I had with others. I felt like I was quasi-witty and could think on the fly, which I believe a lot of times directors need to be able to do. And, you know, I was one of those kids who would, like, literally sit down in front of the TV and, like, watch the way the movies were created, you know. And when the DVDs came out in, like, the late 90s, mid-90s to late 90s, I was, like, freaking out because they had audio commentaries by directors, and then you had to learn the process from their perspectives. They would give 2-hour-long commentaries, or you do the behind the scenes, and they talked about their process of everything. And, you know, I just loved that so much. I mean, you know, because growing up in the 80s and in the early 90s, there wasn't a lot of that. You would have to, like, track it down, and you get lucky and watch, like, HBO or Showtime, where they'd be, like, behind the scenes with Ridley Scott, or, you know, conversations from the director's chair of Quentin Tarantino, or whatever the case may be. And, you know, and so you didn't really see that too often. And so you really didn't, obviously you could read, but when I was a kid, I didn't really even know where to start with, reading from going to the library, for instance, and, like, finding a book about being a director. You know, it didn't seem, feasible, being in the Midwest and Indiana in particular. You know, I felt like the closest I could get would be Chicago. But, I always liked the idea of being able to, produce and create, stories and content that would be seen by millions and millions of people, and, be able to, share my vision. I always thought it'd be so cool. And I just love the process of when I hear directors talk. And, for me personally, some of the directors I grew up with, or directors I enjoy now, include, and I'm just going to go through a list, and so this might be boring for some, but others who also film fans might enjoy. Just obviously Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, John Carpenter, George A. Romero. All of a sudden, John Ford. Really enjoy John Ford. Scott Dickerson, like his stuff. James Wong, like his stuff, modern day stuff. He's one of those modern day guys I really enjoyed as well. Trying to think, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas to a lesser degree, but their stuff in the 80s were, like, for me, very important. I just love their stuff. And then, you have a lot of the guys that are kind of like peripheral guys that, a lot of people wouldn't know, like William Girdler. He is a director of B exploitation films from the 70s. Really big fan of his. Todd Browning from, he's from Louisville, Kentucky, as is William Girdler. Todd Browning was the one who did Dracula, the 1933 Dracula with Bela Lugosi, but he also did Freaks, and so things of that sort. I've always enjoyed his approach. James Whale, who did Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, loved his stuff. So those are some guys there. But William Girdler, let's get back to him. He was an exploitation director from the 70s. And a lot of people don't know about exploitation films. Larry Cohen is another 70s exploitation, 80s exploitation filmmaker that I really like, his directing style. John Landis, American Wolf in London, Coming to America. Such a great director. Literally, like, such a great director. But William Girdler, Larry Cohen, Frank Henenlotter, some of these guys are, you all wouldn't know, but just to share, they would literally take the most, like, subversive ideas and put them onto film and just, basically exploiting a topic, which you would never be able to do today because the political and social justice warrior climate that you have, people would lose their minds. But they would take certain topics of race and gender or sexuality or whatever and exploit it to make money and to make it as sensationalized as possible. And, like, for instance, there's one that Girdler did was an animal attack film. He used real animals. This was back in the 70s. There was no such thing as CGI. And had these animals attacking people, like literally attacking people. And it was, like, sensationalized because, of course, the people aren't really getting hurt, but they're really attacking people. Like, they're attacking the trainers or whatever. But it shows them, like, being, like, ripped apart on screen. And that was, like, shocking at the time. You have, like, a huge grizzly bear or, like, a pack of, dogs or whatnot. And so you have that. And then you have people like Larry Cohen and them making blaxploitation films. Jack Hill is another guy who did this. And they'd be like Women's in Chains and they'd be like in these prison movies where they're like one white girl, one black girl, maybe one Asian girl. They're all getting beaten, whipped with chains and whips or whatnot. And then they break loose and then they fight back against the man. And, of course, usually they're in some kind of like jungle scenario and things of this sort. I just really enjoyed cinema back then because it was raw and gritty. It felt almost like documentarian. I don't know if that's a real word, but it felt like it was a documentary at least. We could have felt so real. So I enjoyed things like that. And then if you fast forward and Quentin Tarantino is like the first one to tell you, he borrows, quote unquote, borrows his ideas from other people. Like, he lifts ideas and then completely creates his own world. Now, I know Troy Rudder, TTM Autograph Troy, doesn't like Quentin Tarantino and actually said that he thinks he's, what's the word he used, overhyped or whatnot, which makes me, like, literally lose my mind. Because I feel like he's one of the very few directors working anymore who actually has an original thought in his head. Everybody else wants to reproduce movies from the 80s and 90s and just like makes part 5s and 6s or just keep revamping the same superhero franchise every like 8 years because they want to make more money and put the same everything's the same but just new actors in it. It's same storyline, everything's the same. But Quentin Tarantino, I feel like he just makes his own worlds and I really enjoy that. So anyways, guys, I know I kind of went on a tangent as I told you I would, So no surprise there. But again, to get back into it, I know I went down a rabbit hole there. What did you want to be as you were growing up? And maybe it was the same thing you want to do when you were 8 that you were when you were 18. As you got older, then you realized it just didn't happen. Maybe you're doing what you want to do right now. Like you wanted to be, maybe you want to be a police officer. That's what you are right now. Maybe you wanted to work as a management in an office, and you're a manager in an office. So maybe sometimes you get to keep your dream. That's awesome. So what is it that you always wanted to do that you are doing? You got to do your dream, which is not a job. It's what you want. It doesn't feel like you're punching the clock at all. Or 2, what is it you always wanted to do but you never got a chance to do? You never, you just didn't have the opportunity for whatever the reason. So I would really like to know what your thoughts are on that. So anyways, I appreciate it. A very non-trigger worthy video. Hopefully everybody will contribute and participate. I would greatly appreciate it. Until next time, peace out.